Evening, everyone. Very good of you to join me this evening to have a look at the AYA number 3. If you could like and subscribe, that would be much appreciated. But this is one of my favourite guns. Really like these. Quite nostalgic, really, for me. I grew up with these guns. My grandfather and my father were big AYA fans. And I suppose I am too. My first 12 gauge was a AYA single barreled Cosmos. Yeah, and they are fantastic guns. In front of us here we've got the number 3. What denotes a number 3 as opposed to a number 4 is lack of ejectors. So this is a number 3, so it is a non-ejector in the range. So AYA basically called this their English collection, English range, and they did a Yeoman non-ejector, a Yeoman ejector, a number 3 non-ejector, and a number 4 ejector. So the Yeomans basically did not have any of the little border work on. There's only a small amount of engraving on this number 3 and on the number 4, but the Yeomans were lacking in that. Although my father did purchase himself a Yeoman, he thought it was fantastic value because it was a lot cheaper than a number 4, basically for the same gun without the engraving. And he got an ejecting box lock. So, in fact, I've got the receipt. Look at this. So I'm going to have a quick look at this. The 15th of the 7th, 1986. And in 1986, an AYA Yeoman ejector was £285 cash. Yeah. So I've got the receipt for the Yeoman ejector. This isn't a Yeoman ejector, this is a number 3. But we've always had AYAs in the house. Yeah, with good reason. Fantastic manufacturer. Obviously passionate gunsmiths. Skilled craftsmen, really. And I have to say, unless they've been seriously mistreated, incredibly reliable guns. I remember as a young man, a lot of the guns, we'd go on Fox drives and a lot of my dad's friends, and it seemed like almost every gun you saw was a model of AYA. Obviously, a lot of the guns on driven shooting were on number 2s, 25s, 25 side locks. I had a 25 side lock and a box lock myself. I had a 20 gauge. Number 25, yeah, but mostly and the gamekeepers and beaters, and a friend of mine used to go wildfowling. He had a Matador, which had 3-inch chambers and a beaver tail forend. They made some lovely models, all of them very pretty English style, and this really is a nice example of the English style. You know, they looked at the Anson and Daly box lock, and like the Birmingham box lock in England, really well made, fantastically reliable, and really, I feel it's quite an easy design to fudge. They are, when you pick one up that's how do you describe it, really? Almost clumsy, really. They are quite elegant and refined. You know, they spent a lot of time refining the design for the discerning English hunter gentleman. And when you get a very cheap box lock, they are sort of not very well balanced and quite chunky, and there's a lot of ever such small things that that really make a difference to how they look and feel. And obviously, if you was to go to a manufacturer, say in Italy, wanting something like this now, you would be paying quite a price. Obviously, the Powells and people like that, and the Churchills, they're made in Italy to an English specification. Lovely guns, considerable money. Yeah, I think it's quite hard, and there's a lot of effort goes into making an English style gun. So so here we are with this beautiful number 3. So we'll start at the back, shall we? Anyway, and work his way through. So we've got sort of like this varnished, stained finish. So they've obviously put a bit of colour in the wood, and then they've given it this very weather resistant, and obviously it's stood the test of time well. Finish. It's not like your English oil finish, but this gun really would have been sold to someone who wanted a very reliable gun and would expect it to perform in all weathers for a long time, if not a lifetime. So that's obviously one of the reasons that they last well. And if we can look at the grain in this wood, we've got a little bit of figure here in the back, but very plain, very tight grain up in the head, which is important if you want your gun to continue functioning. So we've got a checkered butt, nicely done. Bit of flat point checker in there on the butt. We've got a couple of caps in there, nicely done. Like I say, we've got this dark varnished finish. We actually got looks like a little bit of fiddle back there. Yeah. And this is obviously done by hand. Quite nice. You just see a couple of little bits where they've gone, but they won't have been lurking about doing this. They'll have had a few of these to turn out. But that really it's really nice checkering, nice flat point. Feels fantastic. This gun hasn't had a lot of use, but yeah, you can see there you've done a nice job of that. Long before they were doing it with lasers. But it's neat, and we can see it's got a border around the extended trigger tang there, and they really have. They've done a nice job of the checkering. It's same on the fore end. Yeah, flat point checkering, nicely done. And then we get onto the back strap with a safety catch, automatic safe. She's straight back on, and I suppose like a lot of this goes back to like the Birmingham box locks and people who come from hammer guns. When hammerless arrived, and you couldn't see whether the hammers were back or not. I think there was still a hang up from like an older generation of safety and what was safe and what wasn't safe, and automatic safe was obviously seen as a plus. A lot of guns of the era have it. A lot of game guns still have it. But we've got, a really nice safety catch. Bit of cross action on it. You can get that in all weathers. Really proud. Sticks up, but doesn't it look nice and tidy? And we've got a small amount of engraving. I'll take some pictures of these small bits of engraving, just so we can see a bit more detail. Wood to metal fit is pretty damn good considering how long this has been about. And it's funny because you look at a gun now and you've got a back strap and the wood's sat proud of it. It isn't on this AYA. Incredible really. And what's expected and what's considered good gun making. This timber isn't like dead proud of the metalwork. The wood to metal, even fits quite good. As is the metal to metal fit. We've got this top lever, lovely shaped top lever. Yeah, lovely balls to the detonators. If you don't, I call them fences. I think Wood would describe their arcaded fences, so it's a fence to me. Yeah, really nicely shaped, and like I say, on cruder guns, this is what's missing really. And this is where the AYA really, hit a home run really. We've got this lovely top lever. We'll put the gun up actually. Yeah. You know, the top lever's not stuck up in your eye or anything like that. Lovely, sleek, you know. This silhouette of a gun is ingrained in most people's minds, I'm sure. But yeah, lovely top lever. The screws are nicely engraved. There's a nice little bit of finishing on, and I suppose, yeah, it doesn't look like much, but obviously the yeoman was less, and this little bit of embellishment was, for your rough shooter, someone who was taking a few rabbits and a couple of pheasants and pigeons and walking hedgerows. Like I say, my dad and my grandfather in particular, they were really happy to have one of these, and I'm not entirely sure what wage my dad would have been on when he bought the AYA Yeoman for £285. But I bet it wasn't £80 a week. So I think relatively speaking, it's probably pretty much the same as you'd be talking for a good usable gun today, relative to the modern living wage, I suppose, if you can call it that. Yeah. So and here we are. We have like the Anton and Dealey box lock style action. Yeah, made famous by all them Birmingham makers. Colour case hardening. So this gun obviously hasn't done very much, and it's got a lot of colour case hardening on it, and it's really nice. And I think they do this a different way. Like a cyanide dip, so they still warm it up, but not as much. And then, apparently that just puts the harder surface on it, and obviously gives it these quite nice colours. We've got blued barrels, not too black glossy. They stood the test of time well. Yeah, I will put some pictures on of these little bits of engraving, and we've got the maker's name there, AYA. I'm going to try and pronounce it. Aguirre in... No, I'm not. Yeah, made in Spain. Arabazala. Oh dear. Yeah, if you're Spanish and I've upset you, I do apologise. Yeah. Anyway, so, and then this is another thing, I suppose. Barrels, the tubes. Chopper lump barrels. What's a chopper lump barrel? Well, they're not like monoblocks sleeved into the chambers, barrels sleeved into a machine block. Each barrel is forged with the lug on, and then basically, if you can imagine, they then join together to make the lugs. So each barrel has part of the lump already on it, or the lug on it, and they're chopper lump barrels. Quite a thing, a serious bit of gunsmithing. The barrels always converge nicely, they're always true, they don't fall to pieces, the ribs don't pop off them. Yeah, it's. I suppose really, like when I think about it, I don't really ever remember. Well, certainly none of our guns, and I don't remember any of them breaking. I think any modern gun, they shouldn't really break. Um, and it all stems from these lovely Spanish guns and Spanish gun making. A lot of skill, a lot of pride. Um, I suppose really they killed off what was remaining of the Birmingham gun trade and the English gun trade, just because we couldn't compete with the, I suppose, the quality and the price that they were coming out at. Like I say, me father and my granddad, they could aspire to own an AYA, but a Wesley Richards or a really nice Webley. Webley's got something like that. You were pushing the boat out, and that is where these guys got it right, and yeah, and they're really nice. This has got 28-inch barrels. We've got a brass bead on the front there. Now we've got no file cut on the rib. It's not a massively gloss finish on the bluing, so it's not a dazzler. And the rib is slightly raised. It's not the sunken rib. Now, I have to say, this is about the limit for me on sort of on Englishness. Some people, they go for the fab arms. And a lot of the modern side-by-sides that are obviously emulating English designs again, they almost go too far. Personally, I mean, a lot of people probably really like a very low sunken rib, but I just find this is just a nice. This looks very pretty, but there's still enough rib there that you've got a half decent sight plane. Yeah. So, no, that's the barrels. We'll just take it to pieces and have a quick look at it. Push rod fore end. We've even got a little bit of checkering there on the screw. Very simple. Not a lot going on mechanically here. But even so, executed to a nice standard. Nice wood to metal fit. They've even gone to effort to put in the serial numbers on the wood, so it's obviously a matched part. And these really were hand finished guns. Yes, stunning, really. Here we go. Now then, look at that. A box lock with disc set strikers, return springs on the firing pins, so you haven't got firing pins hung out wearing the way through the extractors, and yeah, nicely done. And the skill required to put the disc set strikers in is, it's an extra refinement. And all these guns, and all guns really, are sold on their refinement and these little things, and they're all sort of like little sale things. Oh well, our box lock, it has disc set strikers. Does yours? Well, what would you have? Would you have one with disc set strikers or without? You'd have it with, wouldn't you? You'd be there. Yeah, no, that's much better. But yeah, another bit of gun making. You can see how sturdy all this is. These are the trips for the extractor, not the ejectors, because it's not an ejector gun. This is number 3. Yeah, we've got the proof marks, and look, all the colour case hardening still in there. Absolutely. And the steel, obviously, Spain, and famous for Toledo steel, which I believe AYA were using. Famous really for edged weapons and blades and swords. Obviously, it's nice to have a very hard, sharp sword, but it has to have a certain amount of flex in it. And I think the Toledo steel was light, strong, hard, flexible. And really, the Spanish craftsmen from a long, long time ago are very skilled, and they had these fantastic resources. I suppose really you can, the only way I can sort of, if you imagine sort of like the early 70s, late 60s, Japanese cars and motorcycles, Japan didn't have a massive resource of high quality steel, and they disappeared. They rotted away. And a lot of these gun making places, like Ibar in northwest Spain, where AYA come from, and Valtrumpia in Italy, they're in the mountains. They've got wood. They had water power to power machines. And they've got natural resources like high quality steel. And obviously the workforce used to making, I think a lot of the early staff probably were making arms for the wars. And that'll have been passed down, I suppose, through the generations to the gun makers of AYA. So there we go. And like I say, so nice action. We'll clip it together. Listen at that. Now that is hand fitting. That is where your money goes. 4 end clips on nicely. Tell you what, we're going to chuck the old snap caps in. Now, interestingly, the trigger pulls on this gun, obviously the safety's now on, auto safe. There is no trap, and obviously, I suppose really, there has to be a minimal, on like a single selective trigger. If it's not mechanical, there will have to be ever such a small amount of take-up. We're on a box lock here with 2 triggers. It doesn't have to swap over or do anything fancy. It just has to crisply release. And, a lot of the guns that are shot like this growing up, I think the trigger pull is £7, which is quite a lot. Probably one of the most amounts on one of the guns I've got. And it's 7 and 6, but believe you me, it's either not gone off or it has gone off, and they are so crisp. And like when I try guns out now and I do these little reviews and I talk about the guns, these trigger plate actioned over and unders and things like that, with all these selectors and all the other things. It's guns like this that I'm sort of arcing back to and referencing in my own mind, and I think, well, this is like a £4,000 over and under, but why is the movement in the trigger that much? Why has it got creep? Or why is it not performing as well as me? And relatively speaking now, it's very sad to say that a lot of these guns are getting overlooked. But they were very good, are very good. Choking, we've got half and full. I think that was all they made. It isn't, obviously, but it seems like every AYA you ever get hold of's got that in it. They did some fantastic models, which we'll probably talk about in another video. But yeah, so it's heavily choked. Now then, these barrels, do I think that if you sent this to the proof house, having removed some choke from these barrels, would pass steel proof or superior steel proof, high performance proof? I'd be surprised if they didn't. They are heavily choked, but choke can be taken out. You don't have to even have, teague removable, chokes. You can just have the choke taken out. If you wanted a fantastic game gun, for walking hedgerows or whatever it was, or you wanted just to try side by side, gosh, you can pick these up for a bargain now. They're not a lot of money. They're a hell of a gun, really well made. Like I say, people will be getting put off because of all this steel malarkey and all the rest of it. I don't know what you'd pay for one of these. I'm not even going to say it. They're almost valueless if I wanted to trade this in against a new Browning 825 or something like that. I've got a really nice AYA old colour hardening still on it. What would you know what I mean? They'd be like, well, it's not really worth anything. Yet, if you was to say buy a Beretta side by side, which I had a look at recently and had a bit of a feel of, and I have to say their earlier side by sides are quite nice. The newest one that I felt, I was a bit disappointed in with how it felt. Maybe they don't want it to feel like an English one, but yeah, not impressed. And these really do. Gun making is an art, really. Artisan craft, skill, engineering. There's a lot goes into them. And how they feel. And if you shoot any of the AYAs, maybe not the single barrel Cosmos, but the side by sides, they do feel like an English gun, and an English side by side does have a certain feel, and it was refined basically because of necessity, because of such high demand of what people knew what they wanted, and these feel fantastic. If you get a chance to borrow one, try one out, I suggest you do. Not a lot of money, lovely guns. Yeah. And this is the AYA number 3. So, half and full choke, £7 on the right hand barrel, £6 on the rear. Probably done that on purpose, to be fair. With game shooting, a deliberate pull of the trigger is definitely more of a thing than on a competition gun. We've got this durable finish. What else can we tell you? Yeah. I think the drop at the comb is about 38 and at the heel is about 58. Not terrible dimensions on the stock. They are lower than a lot of... Well, they're not really, because they're not meant to be shot gun up. You don't walk around a field with your gun in your shoulder. One, you're either going to hurt somebody or hurt yourself falling around. So these guns are basically made for reaction shooting, snap shooting. Woodcock breaks out, up she comes. Yeah. And it's quite funny, really, because I was thinking about my father, really, I suppose. Quite nostalgic, these guns for me. And we'd go out and we'd shoot lots of rabbits. There was a lot more rabbits around locally then. And most weekends we'd go out and we'd shoot a couple of rabbits. And we didn't get through many cartridges. My dad bought a Winchester 101. It didn't last very long. He wasn't into clay shooting. It was way too expensive for his taste. But we'd go out with a lovely AYA like this. And I'd got a Belgium gun that used to be my father's because he treated himself to his yeoman. And we'd go out and we'd shoot rabbits sort of every weekend, depending on how many we needed. And normally we wouldn't get home with them because we'd bump into someone, and it were different times back then, and people would have a rabbit off you and they'd be glad of it. Yeah. And then I suppose at winter and towards Christmas we might shoot a couple of pheasants. probably 4, if that, you know. And I mean, you know, the main reason was is we only shooted as many as we want. But we'd take paper case Ely's out with us, and we'd have the paper case Ely cartridges, and we'd go out, and eventually a pheasant would break out, and my dad would shoot it, and the dog would go and get it, and he'd pop open his AYA, and he'd pass me his empty Ely paper cases, and they smelt fantastic. Yeah, still got a few now. I might even fire one this weekend just for the sake of it, just because I like the smell of it. And yeah, and I suppose these guns, or these AYAs, yeah, they take me back really to the 80s, and yeah, and man, I was interested in guns then. You know, I was only a young boy, but obsessed really, I suppose. Yeah, couldn't wait to go out with my father, and I'm hoping Maeve will have a similar. Well, she does. She loves it. It's a nice way to grow up. Yeah, so there we go. Going a bit off track there, but these guns are absolutely lovely. Yeah, and thank you for joining me. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'm going to get round to doing the Beretta 694 hopefully soon, and me and Maeve are going to be doing a little bit of fishing, so hopefully we'll be bringing you a bit of fly fishing soon. But yeah, thank you very much, and don't forget to check us out in the future. Have a nice evening. Bye. Nice tubes, stood the test of time well. Chrome lined. Push rod style fore end. I've even gone to trouble to put a little bit of engraving on the screw. Serial number. Flat point checkering. .3 bores. Proof marks. 12 gauge. 70mm chambers. Nicely finished. A little bit of decoration. You have to see, where are the ejectors? Very nicely done. Quality job. Nicely checkered, but you can just make out the plugs. gold inlaid S. A little bit of cross hatching there, a little bit of decoration, just some little borders on the number 3. Just to add a bit of detail. Some quite nice colour hardening, which I believe they did with cyanide. Yeah, very pretty. Like a bit of case colour hardening. See the flat point checkering, slightly extended trigger time, bit of border work. Bit of engraving on the screws. Disc set strikers. Return springs on the firing pins. Double bite on the lugs. Yeah, you know they haven't done much when you've got this much of the case colour hardening left on them. The triggers are fairly rudimentary, a little bit sort of rough to look at. But this was their entry level gun with only really the yeoman below it.